I'm on right there.
Thomas is in focus.
How much people are watching? How many? 2. Hello, everybody. Hey, guys.
Well, they're also just in it. They're messing with it.
The 2 people that are watching. You guys can hear all blurred.
Here, hold up. Watch out for a second.
I didn't realize it was your brother. I want to learn anything about
Okay. So I don't have to do it right here. I just want to take a picture of the last thing.
I mean, you're using my phone.
I'm gonna have my phone up there too.
Oh, all right. It's kind of weird.
It's not that weird.
You want to just take a picture with my phone?
It's fine.
There's no way you'll be able to read that.
Can everybody hear me?
No.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out. Excited to share a little bit from ourselves. I've got a couple special guests up here. If you guys don't know me, I'm Nick Sanker, graduated 2020. This is my brother Jonas. If you didn't know, he plays at UVA. And then we've got 2 special guests who are, I call them industry experts. We've got Kenny Szabo, dear friend of mine who's also a phenomenal local trainer, highly recommend. And then we've got Dr. Martin Katz. And the reason we got kind of the layout that we had is my goal for tonight is kind of share some of the things that kind of we've learned over the years from what's worked for us, what's kind of been some of the challenges, and then from like the student athlete side, but also from the professional side. So you can kind of hear what works, what doesn't work, what is challenges, and what is some of the things that people can do to kind of take those next steps. So I'm also just going to give everybody a chance to kind of introduce themselves a little bit outside of what I did, and then also explain kind of the story of how they got to where they are right now. So give like a two-minute spiel on kind of like your story, I guess.
I'll start. All right, so I'm Martin, Dr. Katz. I've been a physician for almost 30 years now, and over the years, moved more and more towards intentional living. And so what makes you better, what makes you healthier? And it's individual. It depends on what's going on, what you're doing, how much you're applying. And the amazing thing about sports now is there's a ton of very talented people out there. There's a ton of very strong people out there. And the thing that's going to make you better than somebody else is how well you recover. And that is extremely important. And that may sound kind of boring, but if you want to be the best, you really need to pay very, very close attention to how well you're recovering, because your recovery is how well you're going to be able to perform the next day. And if you keep pushing it and pushing it, your ability to perform is going to go down. And that's what you're aiming for, is that performance, right? That's what's going to separate you from everybody else. So that's why I'm extremely excited about what Nick is doing, extremely excited about being on board. so I can help student athletes understand the importance of recovery and what it takes and how to do it. And it's individual, it's what sport you play, it's what position you play, it's how hard you graft, it's what time of the year. There's so many things that go into that. So we're hoping to, again, be able to individualize, monitor, and figure it out for you guys. So excited to be here.
My name is Kenny Szabo. I'm working in strength conditioning. I started that by doing a little bit of it in college while playing football, and then I headed off to Ohio for graduate school, where I got to work with basically every Division I sport at the school, and had a lot of opportunities to travel around and learn from a lot of amazing people in Ohio. And then after I finished graduate school, I came back here to Charlottesville to chase my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and was lucky enough to get a brief position as a coach's assistant in strength conditioning for UVA football until starting with ADAPT, which stands for Athletic and Performance Training, and been doing that for 6 years or so now. And the reason for that, I always wanted to work with this population of, we start as young as 7, 8 years old, but really it's middle school to high school level. As being on the college side in the weight room, we see a lot of kids come in who are some of the best in the country at their sport to play at the Division I level. But in the weight room side, it's almost like we had to start at ground zero with a lot of athletes when they come in. So they're really exceptional on the field or the court or whatever it is, and then it's almost developmental when they show up. For whatever reason, maybe they didn't have a good program in high school, or they didn't lift depending on the sport, or they had a lot of bad habits to break. But I always wanted to get on the front side of that and work with younger athletes so they could kind of bridge that gap. And to keep in mind here, when we're talking about strength conditioning, yes, bigger and faster and stronger, all those things are great, but none of that means anything if you're not healthy enough to play that week or finish the season. So what it's really about is keeping you healthy, building up your body so you can be prepared for the demands of your sport and be healthy and enjoy your sport for as ever long as that may be. And then the other primary goal is to teach athletes how to train and be confident walking into a weight room. And maybe they won't play in college, maybe they will, that's fine. Whenever they're done, we want to be able to walk into a weight room and know what they're doing and be able to get a training session in forever.
Yeah, I'm Jonas. I don't have as a story as they do. I'm still in college. Yeah, I would say getting to college, I've been able to learn a lot about, how important taking care of your body is. Just seeing, a guy who maybe wasn't recruited highly out of high school or was a walk-on, ultimately getting more opportunity to play in college than a guy who was one of the top guys in the country, purely just off of, their managing and being able to take care of their body better, but also, their dedication to the weight room, things like that, being able to grow and get better. So, on top of that, I learned a lot about taking care of my own body with having to have a surgery after my freshman year and after my sophomore year. So just being forced to do a lot of rehab and training, it's just, helped me be more disciplined and taking care of my body when I'm not injured. Because ultimately that made a big difference for me this year, being able to stay healthy, just, being disciplined enough to do that rehab even when my body feels good, just to keep it there. And then, learning about that college level, and then now in the situation of, having to decide whether I want to go pro this year or not. Ultimately, I had to learn about, what separates professionals from college athletes. And the biggest thing I learned was, the difference is really so small in terms of just, professionals are, all that money they make and all the benefits they get, a good portion of that goes into, things like their meal prep, how they're eating, how they're sleeping, massages, all that stuff to take care of your body. So ultimately, I think I'm in a situation where I'm being able to use another year to just learn more about, how can I, take my game, not necessarily from the football side, that too, but also just, turning my mindset into a professional mindset and learning how to take care of my mindset or my body in a more professional way.
Yeah, and I think to kick it off, one of the biggest questions that a lot of high schoolers have is just like, how do I get bigger, stronger, faster? And so I'm going to tell a little story with that. When I was going through high school, I was pretty big, like for this kids here, but I wasn't what I wanted to be. My senior year, I was probably around 6'3", 200 pounds. So I was pretty skinny. in terms of what I wanted to play in college. But later in that year, I started to really like work hard at trying to consistently lift. I didn't really do a great job throughout high school lifting year round. I kind of, during the summers, I would really lift hard those 3 days a week for the most part. And then in the springs, I would do a little bit, but I didn't realize how much time and energy, or like just how much time and how often you had to lift for it to, and like how long it takes for that to show. So my senior year, we had COVID, and during that time, my brothers and I actually built our own like at-home gym, and so we started lifting at home probably like, I don't know, 6 days a week, 4, 5, 6 days a week, depending on the week. And we did that for a little while, and then we actually joined Kenny and started training out over with Kenny over at Adapt and working out consistently. And I put on 25 pounds. I went from 200 to 225 pounds, and I was the strongest I ever have been. I haven't been as strong since then. And so I think there's two things to say to that. One, the importance of having an intentional plan and making sure to lift intentionally and work and train intentionally. But two, also like the mental side. For me, COVID was actually probably one of the most like stress-free parts of my life. We were at home having a good time, and we would just work out and hang out and play some video games or something like that. And so it was very low stress, and I think that was a big part of why I was able to make a lot of the gains I was able to make. And so kind of for me, the question that I'm going to have everybody touch on right here is just like, what do you think are some of the most important, and also just like what are some of the most underrated parts of helping you develop to get bigger, stronger, faster? And from especially Jonas, from like the athletes that you know that are some of the biggest, strongest, and fastest, what are some of the things, routines? Because I think one of the biggest things I want you guys to take away from tonight is what are the habits that they have, the routines that they have, that they do every single day or almost every single day. So I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, so I'll say one thing in high school that helped me out a lot. I mean, obviously training with Adapt was a big thing for me, just, having someone to watch you and be able to fix the little things that you might be doing wrong. But I'm going to recommend creatine because I think that helped me a lot, just, get my weight up. And then something very underrated, actually. Obviously, you're going to be told to eat food and all that, but drinking water, I seen that helped me a lot. Just I'll drink like 1.5 gallons of water every day. That's helped me. But I'll talk about Lucas instead of Tommy, since Tommy's here. But I think one area that, I saw a big difference was, when me and Nick were growing up in high school and middle school as well, every meal we ate was like a big meal. Like we were just always hungry. Like there was no such thing as a snack. Like snack was another meal. So just seeing that, and then, looking back at Lucas and Tommy, it's like, I feel like for them, they kind of just eat a little bit when they're hungry, and they'll like to snack a little bit, which if I'm going to be honest, I feel like a lot of kids nowadays are more like, they like to kind of eat snacks here and there, or maybe eat half their dinner because they already ate snacks 30 minutes before dinner. And when you kind of fall into that habit, day after day after day, and then after that, year after year, you see yourself, ultimately not looking the way you want to. So just finding a way to consistently eat, at least 3 meals a day, preferably 4, because I think if you want to separate yourself, you're going to do more than what the other person beside you. But so yeah, simple things like that, eating a lot of food, drinking a lot of water, because I know y'all like to drink soda, and my little brother's the same way. He likes to drink all that lemonade from 7-Eleven. I don't know what it's called, but just, I haven't drank lemonade or soda or stuff like that, and like I'll go a whole year without doing it, just because like it really does nothing. I'll drink Gatorade if it's like at the facility or something. Like all that other, like those sugar drinks, like the only thing they do for you is they actually make you weaker. Like they can make your muscles worse, and they just make you more dehydrated. So you got to drink more water than you're already supposed to drink.
I would say you were mentioning what might be overlooked, and I think a lot of that's going to fall under what Dr. Katz is going to talk about. In the weight room, it just comes down to consistency. You're not going to get, you're not going to add 25 pounds in a couple weeks like Nick's talking about, and you're not going to add 50 pounds to your squat in a couple weeks. You're laying a brick every time you come in there, and eventually you'll have a wall. Early on, when you start to train, if you're new to training in the weight room, I don't take this the wrong way or let it discourage you, but you won't add any new muscle for up to 4 to 6 and potentially even longer, because it's just your brain learning to recruit the proper muscles when you first get in the weight room. If you ever tried an exercise and you start to shake a little bit like that, that's your brain trying to figure out which muscles to go to, and it's accidentally going to a different set of muscles, and that's causing the shake, and eventually that goes away. And then once your brain figures out how to use all of the muscle in that exercise, then you start to grow new muscle, and it takes time. So it's something that should be a long-term plan. It's the way we like to introduce it, but we're also big on the education side, because we understand that maybe you can't come in and train consistently for 2 years for a variety of reasons, schedules, money, whatever it is. So we're very big on the learning part. So you have to take a break. That's fine. Hopefully you can go into a weight room near you or at home or wherever you have a membership and continue to do these things, because it has to be consistent. And you can lose those things when you stop training. I think we all know that, but they do come back. But it's very important to just stay consistent.
Yeah, I could keep you guys here all night just talking about this.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. This is a tremendously large topic. And recovery is tremendously important. So if you're in the gym and you're working out and you're not eating, guess what? You're just not building. You have to have enough calories. Calories are what you build on. And then those calories have macros and they have micros. Macros would be considered the protein, the carbs, the fat. And then there's the micros that either help support the body or not. And if you're not getting enough protein or calories, guess what? You're actually eating your muscle. So try building it is going to be impossible. So you absolutely need to make sure that throughout the day you're eating. And I am a fairly big fan of creatine. I think there is benefit to it. There's definitely some good studies with creatine. Certainly making sure you're getting enough protein. Now, if you're doing a ton of protein, like 1 gram per pound of body weight, creatine may not be that beneficial to you. But if you're at 1.2 to 1.5, you're inconsistent. I think creatine can be very beneficial. And from a nutrition standpoint, you try to get that amount of calories, that protein in 2 meals or 3 snacks or whatever Tommy's doing over there. Good luck. You need, sorry, Tommy, you're gonna get it tonight. But you need to be consistent, and where Yo and Nick are, those guys are probably at a meal table and they're being monitored as to what they're eating. You guys aren't. Your parents can help you, but your parents may not know that much about nutrition. Most people don't. So you really need to be intentional about what you're doing, and that's just nutrition. Hydration is incredibly important. If you're not weighing yourself after you exercise and seeing what you lost and how much of a sweater, some people sweat a ton and they're losing a pound. You know how much water you have to drink if you lost a pound of body weight? It's probably not going to be muscle. It's not going to be fat or carbs at that point. It's going to be water. You need 16 additional ounces. And that's in addition to the 12 ounces you need for each half an hour you exercise, in addition to the water you need to drink throughout the day, which is half your body weight in pounds, half your body weight in pounds in ounces of water. So water is incredibly important. Sleep, good luck trying to build and give your body time to build if you're not sleeping adequately, and depending on how hard you're working, how much sleep you need. And then there's all kinds of other things, stress management, how much that's depleting vitamin D and magnesium, all the micronutrients. And then there's the gut microbiome, but we won't get into that too much. So there's a lot you can be doing and a lot you can be thinking about to really make yourself better than the guy next to you. And as Yo pointed out, there's a lot of people who want your place on the field. And if they're hungrier, they'll get it. And if they're doing the right things, they'll get it. And if you're not, you're going to lose out, even if you're more talented. So, these are real important things to think about. I don't want to be too serious about it because I'll lose you guys, but this is, where we're at in the sports world right now. If you're plugged in, good, because there's a lot of people who are. And if you're not, you're probably going to lose out.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this before. I know everybody, grows at different rates, and I was lucky to grow early. But Lucas and Tom are gonna grow to be big. I know they are, so I won't try to throw shade on them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this stuff may sound really boring or like I've heard that, but I think one of the biggest things that you guys, especially as you guys young athletes, can really embrace is doing the boring things over and over and over and over again. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that what it takes to be great is doing that boring thing over and over again, because that's just what it takes. You need to be consistent, and you need to show up every single day, whether you feel like it or not. Like the other thing too is just it's not. A lot of times people just see the tip of the iceberg. You don't see a lot of the work that goes behind it. Like I know for a fact that every day in the fall, he's up at pretty much 4:30 every morning to show up for nutrition at 5 or 5:30. During the summers, I'm up at 5:30 every single morning to go to training. Like these are the things that, whether you say, oh, they're just really talented or not, it's a lot of little things that you do to get an extra, the 1% here, 1% there, that little bit of extra sleep, that little bit of hydration, like he talked about. He doesn't drink juice. I don't really drink juice all year. We drink water. And those little things add up. And so one of the challenges to you is starting to look into your life, to sit down for a couple minutes and start to see all right, what are some of the little things I can do that will start to make a difference? So something simple you can challenge yourself to do is to not drink juice, to not drink soda, and start to see how that can affect you. Or taking a couple minutes to stretch every single day. Those things are going to make a big difference. And then you'll start to see that it's not just talent that will get you. Talent's like a good start, but a lot of people have talent. It's the ones that are consistently putting in the work to make use of the talent. And a lot of times it's the little things that I'm talking about that are going to make you even able to play. Because you can be the most talented person in the world, but if you can't play because you're hurt all the time, which is usually the result of not doing the little things more than anything. Injury is like one of the biggest things that comes from not doing these things. Then it won't matter how much talent you have. So that's kind of like some of the things that I was thinking about as some of the kind of first steps when it comes to developing yourself as an athlete. I don't know if you guys have anything else.
Yeah, just real quick on that. So you guys obviously are looking for performance, and to get that, you have to adapt, right? You have to get better at what you're doing. And for that, you have to train. And so with training, you want to overreach, right? So you have to, really work your body hard. And what's being shown is you get training, you get functional overreaching, which means you can recover fairly quickly. You get non-functional overreaching. Now you're starting to get in trouble a little bit. And things like that can show as your heart rate in the morning is a little higher. You're not sleeping as well. Your appetite might be a little off. Your parents may be questioning your mood, things like that. And that's when you're starting to get into functional overreaching. At the college level, at the pro level, they're watching that all the time. They're getting blood work. But in you guys, that's not really an option. So you need to watch for these other markers. And then there's overtraining, right? And that's very difficult to recover from. And you get to overtraining, and your body's exerted to the point where it's very difficult to recover. The risk of overtraining again goes up. And so now, no matter how talented you are, your chance of having an injury throughout the season or illness throughout the season goes up. So you're not even healed. So I couldn't agree more. These things are very important to monitor.
So we can come back to that, but I want to kind of touch on a couple more things throughout this. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on is just like the process of playing college sports. And I think one of the biggest issues is that people try to focus too much on the marketing of themselves rather than becoming a better athlete. And so one of the biggest things I try to tell people is the number one thing you can do to increase your chances of playing college sports is focusing on developing yourself. So I kind of have a process that I somewhat put together that I think can really help you guys navigate this process. And the first thing, like I said earlier, is self-reflection, really understanding yourself. I think it's really important, and something that's really overlooked is to understand kind of what are your goals. Like, do you want to play college sports, and why? And if you do, what kind of level of college sports do you want to play? And once you have a better idea of that, the next thing that I think you should do is talk to other people that you know that can help you get there. So whether that be people like Coach Szabo, Dr. Katz, your college counselor, making sure you have like the right academics to get there, your parents, and helping them understand like kind of where you want to go. And as a group, you guys can together figure out what you need to do to make that happen. Because after that, after you've kind of put together what I call like your support community, you guys, the next thing is to just like create a plan. And so you talk with Coach Szabo, you talk with, even if it's just your parents, of just like, what does it take to get there? And I'm a big believer that in having great mentors and having people that kind of have gone through the things before to guide you along the way, but also challenging you and holding you accountable. I think that the people you surround yourself with have the biggest impact, or is arguably the biggest impact on like who you will become. I know for me, I always had Jonas, someone who was a fierce competitor who pushed me to push myself. And I think that was a big reason for my success. And that's part of like also your support for me is surrounding yourself with great athletes that want to get better and want to push themselves, not someone who's just showing up to the workout and doesn't really want to be there, but someone who wants to get in there and compete and who wants to beat you in squat and push you and is going to get the best out of you. So surround yourself with those people, creating a plan, and the next step is to ball out. Like obviously your film is the most important thing that's going to affect like your recruitment, like showing up on game day and balling out. And then on top of that, going to camps. For me, at Covenant, obviously we played 8-man. I played 8-man my junior and senior year, and definitely was an adjustment. I played 11-man my freshman and sophomore year, and it was a little higher competition, I would say, and that helped me grow, and that was like pushed me to become better. But when I had 8-man, I had to find ways to push myself to get better, like having Jonas. But I also had to find ways to kind of like showcase that I can compete against other great competition. So for me, what I ended up doing was going to a lot of camps, and that's where I got my offer, is the camps that I went to. So make sure you go to camps if that's something that you want to do, because I think that that's like one of the best ways. And coaches who can see you in person, who can work with you at these camps, tend to favor the ones that they've worked with. That's because then they can understand who you are as a person a lot of times. They can see that you are someone who's going to the front line every single time, who's going to finish every drill through the cone, not to the cone. All those little things. But at the same time, when you choose these camps, you got to make sure that you're going to a camp where, first of all, it's a good fit for you. Don't go to Alabama's football camp, if that's not where you're probably going to end up playing. Go to a camp that kind of matches where you are in the process. And there's no shame in starting with lower level schools. My first offers were from D3 schools, and I was talking to some of them. And so you got to start somewhere. But also just make sure that the coaches know who you are before the camp. If you go to the camp and the coaches have no idea who you are, odds are they're not even going to look at you. So you want to make sure you reach out to these coaches, make sure that you communicate who you are. Hi, coach, I'm so-and-so. I'm interested in your program. Here's some of my film. Here's some kind of like my GPA, SAT, stuff like that. Here's my coach's contact information. We'd love to follow up. I'm planning on, and then reach out again. I'm planning on coming to your camp, so on and so forth. Then they'll have you on their short list of people that they're actually looking at these camps rather than just collecting your check. So that's kind of the next step. And then after you've balled out these things, that's when you really like can focus on what do I say to coaches? What do I post on my Twitter? Because if you have nothing to show, if you don't even, there's people that have asked me that aren't even playing varsity football yet. What can I send to college coaches? And I try to, in as nice a way as possible, just say like, you just need to worry about going out and producing on the field. You don't need to worry about that. Let that take care of itself. You've got plenty of time, usually, to talk to coaches. What they want to see is that you've done something on the field. So that's kind of the process. And we touched on already some of the parts with like development of an athlete. But the other thing that I wanted to touch on, also, by the way, feel free to ask any questions along the way because I'm going to just talk. And I can talk for ages. So let me see what else we had in here.
Yeah, I'll second that. Most of you know my son's Baker, but he has decided to go football, and I will tell you, he's gotten a lot bigger. He's got some talent. He's working with this guy, but none of it really matters until he produces on the field. So he's going to have to walk on, and so it's going to be interesting. But yeah, absolutely get ahead of it rather than get behind it because it's much harder to catch up than be on top of it.
Talk to me about the functional overreaching. I didn't quite get all that. Like I know when you're physically, if you just train too hard, I get that. But you were talking about functional overreaching.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies about this now. So there's training, and you want to adapt. So you want to get stronger. You want that neuromuscular facilitation Kenny was talking about. These are all incredibly important things. You do have to overreach to get stronger, right? So you can't just do the same reps and the same weight. You got to go up in reps. You got to go up in weight. To get stronger, you got to try to jump higher, go faster. All these things are important. So you're overreaching, and functional overreaching means you're actually recovering. So when you get done with that, you're recovering. You're eating really well. You're sleeping well at night. You're hydrating really well. And what's unbelievable, and guys, I hope you're paying attention now, it is really hard to now get to dysfunctional and non-functional overreaching if you're recovering. So athletes who adequately recover, they can push it so freaking hard. You can keep pushing them, and they will not get to non-functional overtraining or non-functional overreaching. That sleep, mood, appetite, abdominal pain, mood change, all that stuff, they won't get to that if they are adequately recovering. That's a huge statement. I hope you all got that. That's impressive. Right? So I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about some practical ways to recover. I mean, like, the ice bath, or we, out of sleep. But talk to us about, anti-inflammatory. What are we doing here to functionally recover?
Again, this is a huge. This could be here all night. But again, it's calories, the adequate calories, the proteins. What part of the you're in are you trying to build? Are you trying to recover? So your carb, as an instance, depending on what you're in, and depending whether you're trying to bulk or whether you're trying to cut, you can have as little as 3 grams per kilogram to as much as 10 to 12 grams per kilogram. That's a huge variation, right? And these guys can tell you they can eat, 3 to 5 to 6,000 calories. Protein, how much protein you need to get per day depends on what your goals are, right? And fat, you need at least 20% of your calories from fat. Otherwise, that testosterone, and for the females, their estrogen, progesterone goes away. You have to have that, and that's where for females, that whole triad comes. So they start losing bone mass, they start losing their menses, they start losing weight, and that's a nightmare. They start having fractures. And guys, you're not, that's similar. So again, what's happening from that perspective, as far as protein and as far as fat goes, Hydration, again, I think I gave you some clues as to what needs to happen for hydration. Sleep, for you guys, I would say no less, than probably 8-9 hours on really hard training days. If you got a big test, you could maybe go down to 7. You got a lot going on, but I'd recover from that pretty quickly as well. I think those are the sort of the big things. And there's different things that you can do to monitor it, heart rate variability. You asked about ice baths, so yeah. Ice baths are interesting. If you're trying to build muscle, you want to be careful with ice baths. If you're trying to recover and perform that next day or the day after, ice baths are awesome. So ice baths can be very, very good. The compressions garments can be very, very useful as well. Creatine, again, big fan of creatine. And so there are certain things that you can do that can be very helpful as far as recovering. Infrared sauna, if you happen to have infrared, that can help as well.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but in my opinion, and obviously I don't go nearly as deep into the recovery world as Dr. Katz does, but just with talking with athletes, when they ask similar questions, I usually let them know if you're not getting enough calories, sleeping enough, and getting enough water, you don't need to be worried about ice bath right now. Get those things in check, and then come talk to me. We'll give you one more thing to add, and then get that in check, and then come talk to me. We'll give you another thing. But if those 3 things aren't aligned, the ice bath's just uncomfortable.
Amen.
And just to add on a little bit more, as he's saying, the ice baths are great. I made one. I did a little DIY. I got one. I have to do it all the time. But as far as if you're trying to gain muscle, it can be detrimental. You could do it 4 to 6 hours after, but really, like in season would be the time to do that. If you're trying to build tissue and make changes to your body, the ice bath can stunt that. But you could do it the morning before because you've had 18 or so hours since the last training session. But it would really be a better thing in season unless you have access to one in your home or you DIY one like me. It's probably better to be in season because in season you're maybe not trying to gain a bunch of weight. You're just trying to be as fresh and recovered as you can for the next game. So then it'd be a much better time.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know how much specifics you want to get into it. You have a big question, but 2 questions. How much sleep? I'm sure it's different for ages and the spectrum. And then secondly, Dr. Katz mentioned protein, 1 1/4, 1 1/2. So the kid is trying to consume a couple hundred grams of protein a day. What's the best way to do that?
So the best way to do that is not at one time. Your body just will not absorb that much protein. So this is where that meal thing becomes so crucially important. Well, we'll get to that. So again, if you're trying to eat all that, with one meal and some snacks, it's not going to happen. And breakfast is called break fast for a reason. You fasted overnight, you want to eat breakfast. And if that means prepping it at night, go for it. If that means getting a smoothie with some protein powder and some yogurt or kefir, go for it. You need to eat breakfast, especially for the athletes. I just don't see another way out of it to get those calories and to get those protein. So you don't want to really do more than 40, maybe 45, 50 grams at one sitting. And so if you're a big guy like Mr. Big Guy in the second row there or that dad, and you're trying to build, he may be 200 pounds. He's trying to get 1 gram per pound, 200 grams of protein a day. That's a massive amount. So he's going to have to do those 3 meals and he's going to have to supplement again with some type of protein powder. I'm a bit of a purist. I won't bore you with purist, but I'm a big fan of getting it from really well sourced. If you're looking to build, there's no better build than leucine, which is an amino acid. I'm sure you guys know that. And it's from an animal source. It's really hard to get leucine from a plant source. The only plant source is soy, and you guys need to be a little careful with how much soy you eat. And if you eat soy, I'd make sure it's coming. That is absolute organic. I would do non-GMO organic soy. You can do a variety of plants, and you'll get that full dose of aminos. But plants are a little bit harder to get that full amino complement. And if you're going to do a whey protein, again, I'm a bit of a pure side. I prefer grass-fed whey animal protein, and you can do that in the form of a shake or a bar or whatever. Some of you may too. So again, it just depends.
Do you have a limit to the amount of protein supplement versus food for people?
Yeah, again, I prefer most of it coming from food. I think that's the way I sort of use protein supplements. If you are struggling to sit down, find time for that, then that's kind of where I'd use it. But otherwise, I think food's the way to go. Food is nature's gift to you, so use it. God created great things.
The other one was sleep. Yeah.
Oh, sleep, yeah, so that's also variable, right? So it depends on what time of year and it depends on your age. So as you're maturing and you're growing less, you will need less sleep. So for you juniors and seniors, probably more like 7 to 9 hours. For the freshmen, maybe middle school, you're gonna need as maybe 8 to 11 hours. So pretty variable, and again, monitor it and see how you're feeling and how you're recovering. And your parents will tell you how your mood's doing, and listen to them, because sleep will absolutely affect your mood. I will promise you that. And get off your phones. Well, parents, phones should never be in the bedroom, ever. Keep them out of the bedroom. They're not allowed in the bedroom. Sorry, guys. I feel so strongly about these things. They are not good for you. They can be used for good, but they're not good for you. So keep the phones out of the bedroom. You should have it in certain areas. And I don't think any middle school kid should have phones. Yeah, so there's numerous reasons: flu, the light, and the energy from the phones. But I don't get into all that. Yeah, lots of reasons, and how it affects you mentally. It's just not what we need for our kids. I mean, it was hard enough for me to grow up just with all the pressures. I'm not sure what I would have done to myself if I had a phone. It'd be ugly.
Yeah. Just like from a practical note for the athletes, some of the things I would challenge, and like you said, the importance of breakfast. A lot of people skip breakfast. And I know that there's even athletes in college that do that sometimes, but the ones that are really dedicated, make sure that they get a meal in the morning, because that, like you said, you're breaking fast, and your breakfast is the most important thing in your day. And when you do pack lunches, make sure you're packing a lunch that's actually a meal. And while you're at it, pack like a yogurt for like morning snack or something, or extra PB&J or something like that, to keep adding in as much as you can. Because like they said, it's really important that you spread it out. Don't just try to pack it all in, like half your day's worth of like nutrients and food into one time. You gotta spread it out so that your body can absorb it. And then finally, just make sure that you eat right after workouts. That at school, as an athlete, they make sure, one of the most important things they do is make sure they have food ready to go right after the workout that you can consume, because that's when your body's going to really take it in. I know you probably have something to say.
Just briefly to piggyback off everything they said, these small things have to align with the overall goal. So if your overall goal, just for example, is to go play college sport and you're a sophomore, you have several years. You don't have to go from 100 grams of protein to 200 grams that week. Let all these goals align with the long-term goal of getting to play in college. And I've been there. If you try to add 50 grams of protein to your diet in a day, your stomach might get a little upset. It might not sit right. Yeah, a lot upset. It has to be incrementally increased, just like it would in the weight room. If you want to squat 300 and you're squatting 150, you don't just go put 300 on the next day. You work up to it. The same thing with adding protein. If you don't usually eat breakfast because it makes your stomach upset, it could just be because your stomach's not used to having anything in it at that time. So you start very small, sip on something, and the next day you have a little snack, and then you can work your way up to a breakfast. But make all of these changes align with the long-term overall goal that's 3, 4, 2 years down the line anyway. It doesn't always have to happen that week. Then you jump up too quick, your stomach gets upset, you're uncomfortable, and then you're not doing it anymore. Just let it align and be long-term development.
Yeah. I know you probably had something to say about the recruiting, because I kind of talked about it already. Do you have anything? Same thing with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess being that I went to Covenant and I kind of had to sit similar things y'all did and play sports on the same field, I personally don't have a lot of like leeway for people who make the excuse of, oh, I just want to cut a big enough school, because at the end of the day, I don't think that has anything to do with where you end up. But I would just say, I think Nick hit on a lot of stuff. I think that's good to address, just being intentional. with making sure that you're heard and like reaching out to yourself, not letting anyone else do the work for you. He talked about for him, he went to a lot of camps and that helped him. I actually never went to any camps besides like 2, maybe my freshman year. So everybody's journey looks a little different. Yeah, the importance of film is really good. Just, knowing how to make highlights, putting everything, all your best plays at the beginning, whether that's, I even had one year where I put a clip from basketball season in my football highlights, just because like, you'll be surprised, like the type of stuff coaches like, just, the videos that are going to help showcase you the most. But yeah, I would say with recruiting, just being patient too. I mean, I've had guys who are kind of at UVA with me now who, they had all these big school offers when they were in 9th grade. I didn't have a single offer until halfway through my junior year. I ended up having over 70 offers at the end of it. So like everybody's journey looks different. It's just, you gotta be patient. You gotta wait for your time. But I would say my biggest advice, and I kind of had to speak into my younger brother a lot for this, not just being patient, but just not comparing yourself. I'm not really a big what's the word? Mental health person. Like I'm not an expert in that at all. But like I've definitely seen people who like kind of let that get to them where, oh, this person has these offers. I'm so much better than him. How does he have that? Just when you're in that process, if you're able to not compare yourself to anybody and just, be yourself and not be worried about anyone else's journey. Because at the end of the day, if that person has all those big offers, it's like, good for them. Like that's a great opportunity for them. There's no reason you should be upset at someone else's success because you don't have that same success. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to get an opportunity. When on the football field, there's the boundary corner and the boundary safety. The guy who played boundary corner for us on my side of the field came to UVA as a walk-on, had no offers out of college. Really was kind of, I don't want to say like a practice dummy because UVA treats the walk-ons really well. They're treated basically as scholarship players, but like when you're a walk-on there, you're overlooked a lot and you don't necessarily get to be on the field as early. But he worked his way up and he's now one of the best players on the team. He's probably going to get the opportunity to go play professionally. But the thing that I learned a lot about him, I learned so much from him, but his ability to just not be worried about what anyone else is doing and just only be focused on, bettering himself, like that's a big thing, and just being able to have that same confidence when you come on the field. Because I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to have confidence in yourself when it seems like no one else does. But if you can find a way to be confident in your own abilities just because of what you put in, it's gonna help you a lot in high school, in college, wherever you are. So.
Just go more for recruiting. I think a big thing, because I can give you a different perspective. I'm not a sport coach, and obviously I'm not an athlete. But looking at things like these camps and the recruiting process kind of outside of it, and obviously I'm not in it as a parent, understanding the process as a whole and how much it's changed in the last few years since they changed that rule that you don't have to sit out a year in college if you transfer. So the transfer portal, I think that was like 2020, and the transfer portal went from 5,000 to 6,000 kids in it to 10,000 the next year. And only 43% of those kids got another scholarship offer, and like 6% left the sport altogether. So just college sports as a whole is very different. In 2020, I think it was 3% of kids would get a scholarship offer, and it's down to 1 now because the transfer portal is so large. And so, they see this 18-year-old kid coming out of high school, but here's a 20-year-old who's played for 2 years. I'm going to go get him. And then, like I said, that's not always a guarantee because only 43% of those kids in the portal got an offer, so they had to go to either go down a level to Division II or III, or they went to junior college for a year, whatever it is. But it has changed a lot. And then when you talk about the camp side, I have been at a school, not UVA, that they run these camps in the summer, and a big part of the reason is just to make some money for the program. And they got a list of a few kids that they know are coming, and they're going to really watch them. And if they get surprised by a kid, that's a bonus, and they're excited about it, and maybe they extend an offer that way. But what I'm trying to say with that is Nick mentioned it, is to make sure the coaches know you're coming, make sure they know your name, go shake your hand, and maybe you're not on that list of a few kids that they might have personally invited or really have their eye on to recruit. But the coaches will always take notice of somebody who's running between drills and giving a lot of effort and saying hello and introducing yourself. And to extend from there, is a story about a kid, this is 2 or 3 years ago. He was playing football here locally and didn't have any Division I offers, and that's where he wanted to go. So D3 schools wanted him to come play. And he just started messaging coaches on Twitter and sending film. And based off of a Twitter DM, he got a scholarship right at the last minute, and now he's playing Division I football. So think of it from the perspective of these recruiters. Their job as a recruiter is to go scour the country and find the best kids for your program. That, and other things that have to be considered is we'll just say football, the style of offense that they run, and what are those coaches looking for? Everybody's a little bit different. It's not much different than the job market in adulthood. The companies are looking for different things, they have different practices, and you have to find what aligns for you. But if I'm a recruiter and I'm looking across the entire country for the best kids for my program, and I'm getting these kids to direct message me and send me their film, I'm gonna do that before I go hop in the car and go to a high school and then get handed film, and I can do that from the comfort of my desk. Get your film and get it to these coaches. I don't know if it's the best platform now. It would still be Twitter, and I'm sure there's just email would be great, but that was just the example I shared. If you can get in front of these coaches, and I've had several college athletes, whenever we do something similar to this, in the past we've had college athletes come out to a workout and work out with some high school kids on a summer weekend, and then we let the kids ask questions, and they inevitably always ask about recruiting. The last several years, it's been the same answers, and it's these college athletes are telling the kids to message these coaches. You go recruit the school you want to go to, and start messaging them and get in front of them and give them your Twitter. I think, but you can be just as much part of that recruiting process as the recruiter themselves, is what I'm trying to say. And to be aware that these camps, some of these schools are just trying to make money, so you really have to make an impression, and just showing up and going through the drills won't do that. You have to stand out in some way, and that can be as easy as shaking hands with the coach, but it's also just running the drills and having a good attitude and being excited to be there, and every coach loves that.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Lucas to a couple camps, and you'd be shocked how many kids just don't run past the cone. Like, they'll pull up right before the cone. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's the thing coaches hate the most. It's just not finishing the drill. And if you're already not finishing the drill, when you're on tryouts, they're definitely not taking you. So that's something simple. And then just do, like you said, you got to stand out in some kind of way. Like, whether it be always at the front of the line, they love to see that you want to be better. You want to be at the front of the line. And it's great, like, as terrible as this sounds, like, even sometimes you can cut the line and keep going. Like, that's what, like, when I was going through it and I was at Virginia Tech, I was going as a linebacker, going through it, their camp, and there were these 3 linebackers that literally, they were pretty much the only ones that got one-on-one reps, because they would just cut right back to the front line every time. I realized that pretty quick, so I just joined in. And so it was the 4 of us. And we got pretty much, like, I don't know, 20 out of 25 reps. And the coaches don't care. That shows, like, you want to be there. You want to get better, and you're going to take that. So that's some of the things. And then also just, like, you can, I don't know, wear some bright shorts, make you easy to spot. Just things that will make you easy to remember. But yeah, I think as we was talking about was, like, how things are changing. I actually did a little kind of like study to test it. I took all of the number of high school signees versus transfer portal signees over the last 6 years. And I think it was 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2018 or so that I started. And it was, like, at that time, like 99.5%. This is all ACC football teams. 99.5% of the new athletes that came in each year were high school athletes. Let's see who can guess what it was like 2022 or 23 that year. Anybody, any guesses? This is just ACC football.
I got 20.
Like, what percentage? Yeah, it was like 60. It was like 65%. So it dropped like 35% when it had been close to 100%. So it's basically 35%. I think it's going to get down to like 50%. Yeah, that was like before this past year. And I think it's getting bigger and bigger. I think it's going to get to at least 50 or less % of the scholarships that were available to you guys before all this craziness and transfer portal and coach is trying to get athletes that are already in college. The big thing that I'm trying to say is that it's getting even harder. So that just means you guys have to be more intentional because you gotta want it more. And that's not to discourage you and say like you can't do it. That's just to say that you need to raise your standards for what you hold yourselves to because it's getting more competitive and you're competing not just against other high school athletes, but also college athletes. So make sure that you take those next steps and you challenge yourself. And like you said, believe in yourself that you can be that guy and you can take that next step.
And I think the other thing he's trying to say, don't give up. Stay at it. You know, if you don't get it at first, keep going and you'll get it another time.
Just real quickly, just say about the camps, to put it in another way, if you just show up and go through the drills, you're just paying to get a workout. It's a job interview. Think of it as an investment as a job interview versus you're going to get a workout in, because that's all it's going to be if you're not doing those things to stand out, as he's mentioning.
Yeah, and, real quick, I don't know, Joe, if you've seen the show Swamp Kings. I'm just going to throw, if you're thinking about Division I, how many of you guys have seen Swamp Kings?
Oh, wait, the Florida Gators?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Urban Myers.
I'm thinking talking about some animals.
Well, I mean, it is about the Gators.
What animals is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's intense. I just watched that part of that show just to get an idea of the intensity of Division I. It was eye-opening. For sure, those guys are, and Tim Tebow didn't search anybody out except the hardest working kid that was there already, and he matched that kid's intensity. He's pretty much a success story, certainly, University of Florida.
Curious, both you guys are at great academic universities. How do you balance your schoolwork and put that into the whole equation as a high school kid and now as a very competitive university student?
Me personally, I obviously like during the season stuff, it's my schedule's a lot more busy. So that's taking one less class and then understanding that I'm gonna have to take 5 classes instead of 4 classes in the spring. But also what they'll do for us is we're there all summer, so they'll, especially when you're younger, they'll recommend you to take at least 2 classes and two out of the 3 summer sessions, because that's ultimately just gonna lighten your load a little bit in your fall, but also just help you graduate earlier. But one thing I did when choosing my major, so at UVA you don't have to choose your major until after your second year, and the major I chose, a lot of the work we'll do is like essays and like bigger assignments, because I just know like a lot of the time, one of my biggest weaknesses when it comes to school, like the little daily homework assignments, or like it could be like, oh, submit this one sentence. Like sometimes that'll just slip my mind. I would much rather just, instead of doing daily homework, I would rather just, every month or every 3 weeks, just do a big essay, just knock it out, because that's just how I operate. So just kind of figuring out, when you're deciding what classes you want to take, how you work best, and then structuring your schedule and what you do academically based on, what works best for you.
Yeah, and I think for me, what I would say is just, one, make sure that when you do work, it's quality, like the time you spend on work, the quality of that time rather than the quantity is what matters. For me, a big thing that I have to do is I have to really it takes a little time to get into a flow, into a rhythm. So I have to kind of set aside larger blocks of time to really get going. But I prioritize making sure that it's completely distraction free. So I have to put my phone and other distractions in another room. And I found that me making sure that I take the time to make sure that I make the most of that time pays off way more, because then I end up getting an hour of really good work. I'll end up getting more done if I did 4 hours of halfway working, halfway watching a movie, chatting with some friends. No, go sit down on your own, put your phone somewhere else, turn it off, and focus on. And for me, I'm a big pen and paper guy. I think that I have been way more productive when I write things down on a piece of paper before ever even taking out my computer. And also whiteboards, chalkboards, dumping out your thoughts on there. has been really, really helpful. And so the original question was kind of like balancing it. In order to balance, I found that I have to make sure that the time I spend is spent well. And so you can still find time to do other things if you make sure that while you're working, you're actually working. You're not halfway working. Then you only will end up spending a quarter the amount of time working, and you'll have time to recover and to do other things. But then also just being organized. Like, same thing with being intentional with your training. Be intentional with your academics. Take time consistently, build a routine that you're going to take 30 minutes of intentional work and going through your stuff and making sure you just check everything off, because 90% of your grade in high school is just, did you do the work and did you do it on time? And that's just that. It's not saying how smart you are, are you taking the time and you putting in the work to do it the right way the first time? So that's kind of some of the big things that I've noticed. And then just like learning how you learn, like you talked about. Everybody learns differently. For me, I have to sit down and whenever I go to do work at school, I have to go to a room that has a whiteboard or a chalkboard because that helps me learn things better. I have to write things down physically for me to learn. It's just how I work. So try to understand how you learn, because that'll make everything so much better. And I think that the way that education and just like society in general is going, it's going to be important that you learn how to build good habits and you learn how to learn new things. Because and that's what the whole point of like where I go to school, it's a liberal arts education. It's very similar to here. You're learning how to think, speak, and write really well. And those things will carry you way further, I'm telling you, than necessarily learning a couple facts. And so be intentional with the way that you learn. And like for me, I will hear it, I'll take in a lecture, annotate things. You got to write things down while you're taking it. Like I like to print out all my slides or have something, print it out, write it down, and then go back and write the notes one more time. But when you're writing it, write it in a way that you understand, so it like categorizes it. And I know I'm kind of like, I might sound boring right now, but this stuff's like actually like very helpful when you get to being older. You got to understand how to take good notes and how to learn things really well. So writing your notes a second time and putting it into categories as you go is going to be really helpful for you. And then find like someone to study with that you can like explain it to, because teaching is one of the best ways to learn something. Because when you're explaining something to someone else, you find where the chinks are in your argument, the broken chains are, and then you can fix those things as you go. So that's kind of from the academic side, because I think that my goal is to help you guys and help all the athletes in this area succeed in sports with people like Kenny and Dr. Martin Katz and Jonas and all those other great student athletes, but also school and life is really important. I think that they all are really interconnected. And as you start to be intentional with your sports and your academics and whatever you do, it all kind of will start to translate over to your other areas of life. And because success is a lifestyle at the end of the day.
I'm gonna add one thing to that. Well, first off, you can tell he went to Princeton. But second, going off that last thing he said, basically something that really helped me a lot in college. I mean, it can help in high school too, but knowing who you're in class with. So there's some classes where I don't have any of my teammates with me in that class. Just knowing one person in that class, like this actually happened this last semester where there was an assignment coming up, right? And the person texted me 2 days before, was like, have you even started it? I'm like, man, I didn't even know like we had it. So like just like a moment where you just like slip up, and then on top of that, it's like having a relationship with your teacher or professor. It's like it's definitely been times where I'm like, I got this 10-page paper due. It's Tuesday and it's due Thursday by 12 p.m. And I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna get done. So like having that relationship with that professor is like you can email him and be like, oh, like, is it okay if I get a day or two extension? Versus if you've never met the professor, which there's definitely been classes for me that's happened where the professor's like didn't even respond to the email. He doesn't know who I am. But having a relationship with the professor and having relationships with other people in that class can save you, like at times.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other questions.
I will mention one thing real quick. If you haven't read it yet, you should read Atomic Habits by Jim Player, for sure.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
my
must
first book.
read. Parents, you should buy it for their kids. Kids, you should read it.
I was just going to say, expand a little bit on what you said, because I think, thank you all of you, and I'm not the one closing this, by the way, I'm just a parent here, so.
Yeah.
Have to stop for some sense. But what you just brought to me is like the most important thing, because all those discipline things that you do, the doing the boring thing, the foundations over and over, taking care of your body, not comparing yourself to somebody else, holding yourself to high standards, having good friends, looking at people in the eye, you go to a camp for an interview, it's a jogging, right? Taking care of your body, all those little things you said apply entirely through life, not just in sports. With your wife, with your kids, with your job, with your community, with your society. So what you guys are doing, or what these guys are doing themselves as student athletes, that discipline they're creating, taking the time to study, taking the time to go practice, and taking the time to go to a game that's 3 hours away, so I have to study before or after, whatever. That applies for life. And it's gonna make you successful. Absolutely. That's something that I'm so glad that you brought up, because we at 57 definitely have seen it, that you have to have that in life. Doesn't matter how talented you are, I've known extremely smart people. Our partners are becoming someone that are extremely unhappy because they didn't have the discipline, they just went for something, they didn't make all the money, they're unhappy. You have to find that niche, you have to do all those little things throughout your life, and then you become much happier and much more successful. And I really appreciate you guys doing this thing.
Yeah, and yeah, you hit it nail on the head. I think that parents, for me, I think one thing I want to say is that sports is a big reason of like why I was able to develop and become the person that I am. I think that it's developed a lot of the biggest life skills and life lessons that I've learned have come through sports. I think through sports and having great mentors. I think obviously my dad was a big part of that. Like and this is something that one of the biggest life lessons that you learn in sports, but also from a mentor, is just like the ability to figure things out. When you are on the field, it's 3rd and 5, and the play goes haywire, and you need to get that first down or get that stop, and you just need to figure it out. And I think that's one of the biggest things that one of the lessons that I heard from my dad when I was in high school is just like, I would always complain, like, oh, this is not ideal. Life's not fair. Figure it out. Like, that's one of the biggest things that you guys, that a lot of young people kind of expect is for life to be fair. It isn't. That's just the reality. It's not fair. Get over it and figure it out. Because literally almost every workout we have at school, one of my strength coaches always says, figure it out. That's like his favorite phrase, figure it out, Sanker. And so just having that mentality is just like, I'm going to figure it out. I may not know how to do it yet, and I may fail the first time or the first many times, but eventually you'll figure out how to do it. So figuring things out, and then just a lot of the life lessons you learn, how to be disciplined, how to, something that a lot of people take for granted that's very important is just, can people show up? And the ability for you guys as athletes to show up every day for practice, early in the morning, or show up for whatever it is consistently, is something that I don't think you guys appreciate how important that is when you get older, because a lot of people just don't do that. And that's really, really important. I don't know if you guys have anything else, like why athletes should, and this is for like parents, like why your athlete or son or daughter should play sports, is because it develops young men and young women who can have life skills that translate way beyond the game.
So I have a couple things to say. One is read about the Polgar sisters. So this may be incredibly boring to you, but the Polgar sisters are the most talented chess players in the world. And they were experiments. So their dad decided, kind of like if you have the Williams sisters, it's kind of similar. But the dad decided that his offspring were going to be phenomenal chess players, and he ended up marrying a woman who was on the same wavelength as him, and they completely habituated them towards chess. There was no abuse. The girls loved it. There was a time that one of the dads, and this is an Atomic Habits quarter, and playing chess at some time at night. And he's like, "You got to go to sleep. Leave the chess alone." And she's like, "They won't leave me alone." And it's again this habits that you get into, the people you surround yourselves with, that is just so important. And then going back to what that dad said in the back, part of the reason I'm doing this, I have a full plate, but I absolutely love what Nick is trying to do here. And part of the reason is I was a very talented runner in South Africa. I ran at the very top level, but I was much more concerned about being liked and being funny, or not really taking it that seriously. And I could have gone much higher, a much higher level. I was also a very talented tennis player, but again, I didn't put in the hard work. I wasn't working out after tennis practice. I wasn't putting in the hard graft. I could have, there's so many things I could have done with hindsight. I'm sure parents could speak to that if I would have had the wisdom. And you guys have a lot of knowledge at your fingertips now with the cell phones and all the things you have, but what you don't have is experience. And with experience and knowledge comes wisdom. And wisdom is why you want the mentors, and why you want people helping you get to that level. That's what's important. We can understand that, and we can help you guys form those good habits and use that knowledge to gain that experience. Even again, as Nick said, you fail. That's an experience you didn't have. So hopefully you learn from that experience. There's that whole saying, first time, oh, well, you learn. Second time, oh, maybe you should learn again. Third time, it's on you. That's you being an idiot. So that is a life lesson. So again, using those things to build good habits. And that's why I'm so excited about this. We can give you guys to another level.
Everything you said, I agree with on how this can translate to life. This is why I wanted to do the job I do. Consider school. So there's some subjects in school that maybe kids don't like to learn because they're not going to use it. For me, it may be calculus. Be learning it and didn't know why. I'm not going to do anything with calculus. I'm having a lot of trouble with it. I'm not going to need this, blah, 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 blah. Consider that, and somebody very smart, who I forgot their name, said this, is not my thought, but consider that they're not just trying to jam calculus down your throat. You're learning how to learn when you're in school. You have the ability to learn calculus, then you probably learn a whole lot of other things when you get out of school. It's teaching you to learn. So they're giving you hard things to learn to develop the ability to learn. Similarly with sport, I think it's the same way with learning how to be on a regimen and discipline and getting the motion, your spot got taken, earning that spot back, and everything that can come with it, I think is extremely important for everybody who's playing sports at the middle school, high school level.
Sorry, one last thing. I know it's too much to say, but I actually don't like the word discipline. Sorry, guys. It's a word I don't like. You should be doing what you're doing because you want to do it and you're intentional about it and you're enjoying it and you're kind of making it fun. And that was the thing about the Polgar sisters. You would have thought that they were hating what they did. They ended up loving it. And that's what you want to get that mindset about learning and about the sport you're playing. So you're there because you want to be there, and if you're not having fun, you're not enjoying it, find another sport. School's a little different. You got to figure out how to learn what makes it fun for you. So it's not really about discipline, it's about intention. It's about building habits. It's about repeat and repeat and repeat and change things. Don't just keep doing the same thing. Change it if you're not enjoying it or it's not easy for you. Try and make it easy. So there's these things called habit stacking or habit association. All these things that you can do that make it more fun and easier. Don't make it hard. So if you leave your room a mess and you go and you leave it more, you've just got more and more to clean up. But before you leave, you clean it up, you come back to an organized, clean room. That's so much easier. Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, so I'm going to wrap it up and just say that, well, one, I'm going to be here all spring. So hopefully we can do more sessions every once in a while. And for me, I'm going to try to put something together that I can be communicating with y'all as parents, especially to figure out kind of what are some of the questions you guys have that we can talk about more. And then I'm also going to be doing, I don't know if any of y'all have ever done it, some of like the training sessions on the weekends with some of the UVA guys. But then third, also with this business, the start that I'm working on is just we're going to be having college athletes work as mentors. So if that's something you guys are interested in, I will put out more information on that. Just hopefully these athletes can, like I said, help these younger athletes navigate sports, school, and life. Because at the end of the day, right now, that's one of the biggest struggles is that there's just so much information that it's like information overload. I actually wrote my last paper in one of my classes on this, essentially talking about how people today are kind of paralyzed by the fact that they have so much information that they can't make any decisions. And so helping sift through all that and filter out all the unnecessary stuff and focus on what really matters, building good habits, building good processes, and focusing on developing. So I'll put more information out on that, and hopefully this was helpful. Love to kind of like, I'll probably put something out as well just to get feedback on what you like, didn't like, and what you might want more of in the future. And for you guys athletes, hopefully I see you guys at some training things. I know Tyler is probably going to be helping train with that at Covenant with football stuff, and hopefully we can get some other things going. And definitely, if you haven't yet, try to get some working with the dad.
No one asked me this question.
Yeah. You guys have any questions?
Nothing? All right. Yes.
Well, just real quick, Vici is going to be, you're hoping to sort of build out some programs. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're essentially trying to do training programs for a couple of the high schools around here, including Covenant, where we take all into account their like mental, physical, sport-related development. So we're trying to essentially launch a program February through July where we are trying to craft out like what is the best way we can help student athletes develop and improve. And I'm really excited because we've got Kenny, Martin, and another guy who couldn't make it out today. He's actually a pro sports psychologist. And so I wanted to take into the mental stuff because that's something we didn't even talk about today, and we can talk about in the future, but that's something that's been increasingly important. And I know that a lot of the best athletes do it, and it's also just something that a lot of athletes in general are struggling with a lot more, is just thinking about the mental side. I wish I would have been able to have some of that kind of stuff. There's even something simple as just like self-talk, the way that you talk to yourself and believing in yourself and having the confidence, like you said, to focus on yourself and to know that you put in the work is something. But anyways, we're working on building out that program, and hopefully we'll be working with Covenant and some of the other local schools to really build that out and have that alongside the weekly training sessions and the mentorship program. So I'll send out more information on that. But yeah, appreciate you guys making out, and hopefully we'll keep you updated on kind of future sessions, and hopefully I can get some more things like online that you guys can check out as well.
Happy to answer any additional questions you'll have as well. Thank you all.
That's great. Thank you. Just stand like this as you sit.
Oh, for good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing I mentioned.
Thomas was good. Well, actually, no, I did against. Oh, my foot. Is any of your advice different from being on? So much. You know? Okay. I gotta go. Can you hear me? Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, Sally.
I was like, I think I know what you're saying.
All right.
I'm trying to get more rotation. How we having more with I'm working with hopefully
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Sam, you know you want to come over.
I seen some of the kids that built up. I saw them at the
That one's on.
they started working on
That's like Easter.
Great job.
Yeah.
Sam, I can hear you.
Mom. Test.
Yes, I am.
1, 2, 3. Okay, jump, space, start.
My name is Jeb. Like go web. Jeb Blockson, 2024, signing off. See you guys next year.
Continue by That's why I wanted both.
I went onto the